Hey YouTube, this is a part 2 video first of all, so if you haven't seen the first part where I paint this marine's skin tones, I'll have a link here for you guys to check that out. Um, the big takeaway from that video and something I'm carrying over into this video is the use of these kind of primary colors here, the red, yellow, and blue. I don't use a lot of red in this video. I think there might be a few instances where I sneak some in there, but really just the yellow for the highlights and the blue for the shadows. When it comes to the rest of these colors I'm going to pick, these are really just dependent on the woodland camouflage pattern that I'm going to be using. There's some coyote tan and desert marpat along with the equipment, some OD green stuff, khaki boots, but these specific colors don't really matter. Again, if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from this video, it's kind of that ability to mix your own colors specific to whatever it is you want, and being able to look at your references, look at the the lighting conditions. If it's a photograph, kind of think about how the light would have been when that photograph was taken, and then evaluate it to try and best represent the color as you see it or as you want it to be seen, right? There's a lot of things that factor in when it comes to color. Even if you take a picture of something, whether the lighting itself is warm or cool lighting, the white balance and all that, settings in the camera, colors can change pretty dramatically. So it's definitely important to evaluate your references, especially if they're older references. Again, just lighting conditions, atmospheric conditions. Getting your hands on some real references would be great in terms of like uniforms and camouflage patterns. You can kind of compare and contrast across all these different results to really kind of figure out how best you want to represent certain colors. Sure, there might be some colors right out of the bottle that look great, but even on your model, that one color is going to go through different highlights and shadows depending on whether it's the folds of the uniform or if you want to do like color modulation on a vehicle, because this isn't just specific to figure painting. So having that ability to kind of mix your custom highlight colors, custom shadow colors, and keep everything kind of just on the wet palette, all blending around and easily adapted to whatever specific need you have at that time, I think it's a pretty valuable skill. I mentioned this in the last video, but as I paint through these different colors here, notice how I hold the model and how I look at that pre-shading with the zenithal highlight, which kind of represents my light source. And if I'm painting some of these darker, bluer shadow colors, I'm actually holding the model upside down so I can paint directly into those black areas. And then when it comes to the highlights, I'm flipping it back over, painting it right side up, even looking directly overhead, kind of a bird's eye view, just to really see those highlights and add those more yellow colors in from that direction that the light would be hitting. I'll probably have some other things to say, but yeah, if you got any questions, drop them into the comments. Otherwise, feel free to just watch the process and listen to some music. This is a fairly large brush this time. When I was painting the skin tones, I used a pretty beat up old brush, but I need to be a little more precise now because unlike the skin tones, now I'm trying to keep my paints in very specific areas, right? I don't want to accidentally get more paint on the figure than I want, or get it, paint onto the skin tones that I've already established. So even though this is a larger brush, it has a much sharper point, so it's almost you can use it almost like a pencil or a pen or something like that, where you can really control exactly where that paint's going. And because it's larger, it holds more paint, so you don't have to spend as much time going back and forth between the wet palette and the model, and you can kind of just get that brush loaded up, make sure that point is sharp, and then just go into start establishing those base colors. Couple of comparison pictures here showing the green and then the brown, also the angles from the highlight perspective and then the shadow perspective. You may have noticed too that in the wet palette, before I even start, I'm making those shadow and highlight blends, just getting whatever kind of base color I think is close, maybe a couple variations of it, and then mixing a shadow with the blue, highlight with the yellow. There's certainly different ways to do this in terms of highlights and shadows and base color painting. In the past, I would have gone in with like a base color first, and then I'll do my highlights and shadows after that. Oftentimes, I would use oil paint for that. So I would establish an entire base coat for a whole figure in just acrylics, maybe use 4 or 5 colors. Wouldn't really consider the highlights or shadows much at all. Especially for some of these more complex camouflage patterns, and then after that I would just come in and drop shadows in using like a burnt umber oil paint or something like that. I'd come back in with highlights, maybe like a deck tan kind of highlight color, or titanium buff, or whatever the oil paint name is, but I would come back and forth after the fact and do my shadows and highlights kind of all at once as a secondary step. So this is really the first time that I'm handling all of this with acrylics and all of it in real time. And what I mean by that is, as I'm painting these shadows and highlights, I'm doing a little bit of wet blending and glazing, and I'm trying to get this all from start to finish with this acrylic painting to wind up much closer to an end result. I think I still will come back and do some oil painting just to get some better blends in a few areas, maybe do like a small pen wash in some of these little recesses that I want to darken up and get more of that fake shadow in there, especially on the boots and the helmet. But just for the purposes of this video and talking more about these camouflage patterns, this was just something I wanted to try out since I'd never done it before, and see how much of this I could do with the wet palette, with these blue and yellow blends, and trying to think about these highlights and shadows in real time as I'm trying to paint this uniform. One thing I would do differently is definitely making sure that I have a better idea of the actual camouflage pattern that I want to paint in terms of, I'm very familiar with the woodland camouflage pattern, but more so in terms of where I want certain parts of that pattern, certain aspects of that pattern to actually be. I had some references. I have some actual woodland uniform stuff, but in terms of figuring out exactly where on the model certain bunches of color would wind up, I think I wound up doing that. It's probably pretty common where you wind up making things look a little too symmetrical, or you wind up applying things at different scales than they should be. I'm not sure if my pattern is as small as it should be for the size of the figure. And then there's a couple areas where I think I went smaller just because the area I was working in was smaller. For example, like the magazine pouches and the portion of his uniform top that's kind of sticking out from below his flak jacket there. But it's a learning process. I wasn't expecting this to be perfect, and my purpose for this wasn't to be perfect. It was just to try to experiment and demonstrate how we can use blue and yellow and maybe a little red here and there, especially in the brown, just to be able to modify our color mixes and try to work with shadows and highlights in real time. So yeah, I definitely could have benefited if I had gone with a more simpler pattern. I think I overestimated my familiarity with this pattern, and I haven't painted it in a while. I'm still happy with how it turned out, but just figured I'd pass that on. Anyway, thank you. Big shout out to Sarah. I really appreciate you spending some time with me this afternoon filming this. I hope it wasn't too horrible for you. Well, that wraps up this video, but not quite the build. I still got to get like a little Iraqi kind of base going on. But once I knock that out, I'll get some final footage up here for you guys, show you the grand reveal. Please thank Sarah in the comments. You guys let me know what you think of this, if this is a kind of a better format, and I think I would plan on putting down some white paper or something in the background just to kind of get a little bit more of a professional background in there. But yeah, if you guys think this video style works out in terms of the angle, and I know it's got like that action cam kind of thing going on. It's a little shaky. I tried to stabilize it as best I could, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Thanks.